I love you, but be so for real. Before you spend your money on another supplement, wellness trend, or skincare hack, you need to evaluate your actual lifestyle. There's no protocol or wellness hack that can fix a crappy environment or an unhealthy lifestyle. Before we get into the topic and introducing our guests, like, subscribe, follow, leave me a good review wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts. And then to talk about this topic, so it's not just me giving opinion, we have Sandy Martin, the author of the book Biological Edge, a practical guide to longevity. After spending $97,000 optimizing her health the wrong way, in quotes, she developed a framework focused on elimination before optimization. Her work helps people cut through wellness noise and focus on what actually works. This episode is not anti-wellness. It is anti-overconsumption, over-optimization, and ignoring root causes. So welcome to the pod, Sandy.
Thank you. Gosh, I love that. I love that framing. Thank you so much. Yeah, the biggest critique of longevity medicine in the industry is that it's too expensive and inaccessible to most people. And my message is that, yes, what they're pushing on us in wellness is expensive, but it's also nonsense. And I shouldn't have spent that money. And when I stopped spending the money and got real with myself, that's when I started to heal.
Love it. And I think I have some questions on that about getting real with yourself, because clearly through the podcast name itself, I feel like that's everyone's problem, is like we're just not being real with ourselves. But first, I want to ask, what were you spending the $97,000 on? Like, what were some examples of how you got to that big number?
And I had to build a spreadsheet to find out how much I spent at one point in my journey. And that's when I found out how much it was and how alarming it was. And that was just year one. I mean, I still spend on my health. I buy supplements. I buy
Of
things.
course.
That initial amount, the first thing I bought was a $1,400 light device to go on my head, which is great, but it didn't help my cognitive performance because I had mold in my brain and I didn't know it. And then the second thing I bought was a sauna, and that was $5,000 because I didn't know that the cheap ones that are like $700 to $1,000 that your heads stick out of are actually better than the fully enclosed clear light or Sunlighten, or I don't want to, they're beautiful and they're lovely, but if you have a toxic problem, you're breathing in what you're emitting through your sweat. And so they're beautiful and perfect, and I don't want to knock those saunas at all. But for me, because I didn't know that I had toxins to expel, they weren't helpful to me. I needed something where I could breathe clean air while my body sweat out all my toxins, but I didn't know. And then the big one was a $27,000 hyperbaric oxygen chamber, because by that point I was desperate. I was unable to work. I was running a company. I was running events with 50,000 attendees, Comic Cons. And without the ability to really coordinate 1,000 moving parts in a day, I didn't think I had any value at all in this world. And that's another way I had to get real with myself, was that my worth is not determined by the number of tasks I can complete in a day, but that was my mindset. That was the level at which I had to operate, and my brain wasn't functioning. And so hyperbaric oxygen therapy can get oxygen moving to parts of the brain that aren't functioning, but not if they're blocked by mold. Not if mold has created an inflammatory response. And it doesn't have to be mold. It can be sugar. It could be Lyme disease will cause the same. There are all kinds of things that can cause the brain to become inflamed. And no amount of oxygen is going to help. Now, if your brain is inflamed because you hit your head, oxygen can help to repair that damage. And that's why it is so commonly recommended for my situation. It looked like I'd bumped my head, but that was a misdiagnosis from a brain scan that was performed wrong. And so beyond that, it was every supplement Dave Asprey recommended I bought, and on and on and on. And you add up all of the Amazon purchases and all of the, just everything, it stacked pretty quick.
And so you spoke about how you weren't able to perform as, in quotes, well at work, which is a whole other conversation of your body was telling you to slow down. But what specific kind of symptoms were you trying to fix in all of that spending?
So what happened to me, and it happened right after I painted an area that had been wet for decades probably, and I didn't know it, and I didn't even know that that was an incident. I went from, in September of 2020, on top of my game, I had built an entire e-commerce platform in a month, to October, 2 weeks into it, unable to run reports on the system I myself had built. And I had to teach other people all the moving parts. And I was on Zoom with somebody, and it took 3 hours to get through something that should have taken 30 minutes. And he had to keep bringing me back and back and back because I was trailing off. I could not hold a train of thought. The analytical part of my brain had just come to a halt. I couldn't make decisions. I couldn't and when I say couldn't make decisions, I think people think of decisions as big things, but I couldn't decide what that column in that spreadsheet was for, right? Like I couldn't determine the next step after I filled in that field, what comes after. Those are all decisions, little tiny decisions, and I couldn't do it. It was the core competency I had in my work to analyze and work through these things, and I wasn't able. So he had to keep bringing me back. So now what is this thing? Now what is this thing? Because every single point had a circle of possibilities around it in my brain. And that's a wild place to be. It's almost like a psychedelic experience.
I was going to say.
So stuck in presence. The whole world was open to me in every tiny decision. And I was stuck. I was just frozen. And then sometimes I would literally freeze, just like staring off. And I'd come to and go, oh, I wonder how long I've been standing here. And it was a very strange experience. So I knew quickly that I was screwed. I thought, my first reaction, my first presumption was that I was depressed and I was overwhelmed. And as I investigated what was wrong with me, I investigated what burnout was and all of the things associated with that. But when I took 2 weeks off and it got worse, I knew it wasn't that. And I had to look for something medical, biological.
Wow. So then you get the brain scan and they didn't do it right.
And he didn't know it wasn't done right because the doctor sent me to a clinic and he had no idea how it was performed. And so it looked like I had a traumatic brain injury. It looked like I had hit my head because when you hit the front of your head, your brain bounces to the back and it damages both the front and the back. And what had actually happened was that they had done a SPECT scan, put me in a room for 15 minutes to wait, in a dark room, lying down. So I was like, oh, I'll meditate. And I closed my eyes. And when I meditated, I quieted my frontal lobe. So it was getting less oxygen, less activity. And because my eyes were closed, the vision center in the back of the brain was also not getting any activity. And so they injected the tracer while I was lying there meditating for 15 minutes, my eyes closed, and I got up and it looked like I had no activity in the front and the back of my brain. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. It's so dark. He's like, you really hit your head. But I hadn't. And I told him I hadn't, but he didn't believe me. He thought I hit it so hard I must have forgotten. Who forgets?
They don't believe women at the doctor.
They do. Well, some of them
Obviously, there's some that do, but to generalize, they don't believe us when we go to the doctor. Because that could have been one, if he just believed you that you didn't hit your head, he could have thought through, well, what, like, ask questions of, like, okay, so when you did the meditate, or like, he didn't even know he didn't even know. So, like, there were no questions asked. And I think people underestimate how much being believed matters, because it could have been the difference between $97,000.
Well, he was the one who told me I needed hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and he recommended $20,000 worth of treatments at a clinic. And so when I bought the chamber that we had to put at the warehouse because it wouldn't fit in the home, we had an office warehouse. That was just spending $7,000 more than what he had already recommended. And I was like, oh, well, other people I know can benefit from this. We'll all use it. So he recommended that neurofeedback and a drug called nimodipine that's for stroke victims. And when I went to the hyperbaric clinic, the doctor there, he said, so what's been recommended to you for this? And I said, I told him the drug. And he goes, oh, Dr. So-and-so? And I was like, well, how do you know? He said, he's the only one who recommends that drug. So I looked it up, and there was no recommendation for that drug and TBI. Okay. Only for stroke. And so that was my first, that one doctor in that hyperbaric clinic. And he was the one who recommended mild therapy at home. He was so helpful, he changed my life. Because he said, you don't need the big chamber that I have. It might actually hurt your brain. So 2.0 in the clinic is too much for the brain. He said, you need a mild chamber. You can rent it and take it home, but I bought one instead. And he said, that doctor is the only one who does this. So that was the first time in my life that I took a step back and said, okay, maybe I need to really think about what's being recommended to me, because you can't just take a doctor's word.
Especially when a lot of the times, through their own fault, they don't have all the information because they didn't ask.
Right. And they're not incentivized to do that. They're incentivized to prescribe and move on.
Exactly. So how deep into your journey with that did you realize, like, none of this is working? I need to make a big shift that's not treatment after treatment. Like, how far into it?
So I recognized the injury in about mid-October. That appointment was like mid-November. And when I refused to take the drug, my then husband took me back to the doctor, and they both tried to convince me to take it. And I just stubbornly said no. And that's why my first book is called Biohacking Starts with No. Because every decision that's positive for our health usually starts with saying no to something. And I was there for a long time, and my first book is just angry. Like, this is all this stuff in the world that's poisoning us and all the things we need to say no to. And my second book, Biological Edge, is more structured and helpful in knowing how to go from no to something really positive in your life. But you can get a lot of positive just by stopping stuff. Because there's, between the screens and the foods, there's just a constant assault on our attitude and our health, our bodies, our attitude, our relationships, our politics. Like, we're under assault every single day, and we can say no. We can not participate.
I feel like I never thought about it of, like, the moment you say no being so impactful, but I know in my experience of having like 2 uterine conditions, adenomyosis and fibroids, they were like, okay, birth control. And like, I went to specialists, not just the regular GYN, like University of Chicago top surgical, this, that specialists. And they're like, yeah, so your option is birth control and just keep getting ultrasounds to make sure it doesn't get worse. And I'm like, but I had tried it because another GYN recommended it, and I didn't have a good reaction. I felt depressed, and I don't have depression. I have things. I got ADHD, but I don't have depression. And I noticed that as soon as I started taking it, so I stopped. And when I went to the specialist and that was her recommendation, I was like, no, I'm not doing it because it's not solving the root cause.
Yeah.
I think like I don't villainize birth control because I think it's a great option for a lot of people. Like if your root thing you're trying to solve is I don't want to get pregnant and you don't trust yourself to use other forms of contraception, it's a great solution to that. But that wasn't what I was coming in about. And just to give me a blanket thing, no, I'm not going to do it. And in my experience, I felt like when I would come back for my follow-up ultrasounds, it would almost be like kind of like snarky, like how you said your ex-husband and the doctor were like, oh, well, you need to do this. So then how good is the level of care you're getting if when you say no to something, there's like an attitude around it?
Right. That is such, yeah, I know that it feels so similar because that they're offended that we would say no in a way. And then they treat us as if we're difficult from that point on. You might have a note in your chart that you're non-compliant.
Probably. Yeah.
And so like, of course, here it is, here you are. Of course it's like this. But there are different kinds of doctors, real doctors, who aren't allowed to make recommendations outside of that narrow window that you can access to get different kinds of treatment and care. But that is where it gets expensive. And that is where, that is where there is a problem in the industry because not everybody has access to the information where fibroids can be reduced through lifestyle and alternative kinds of therapies than birth control.
Yeah. And like, I think like within a few months of starting to do alternative things, when I came back for a follow-up ultrasound, at first I had 3, it went down to 2. Like 1 just completely wasn't there.
Nice.
And the doctor still didn't even acknowledge. She's like, oh, well, I don't think you would get your vitamin D levels checked like I asked. And I'm like, so you're not acknowledging that last time I was here 6 months ago, there was 3 fibroids and now there's 2. And I still haven't taken your birth control.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Oy.
but like thankfully I had the privilege and the time to learn about what other, like you said, there's ways to reduce symptoms or reduce the size, or in my case, like one of them completely went away. And then in your perspective, what's the difference between like being actually well and participating in the wellness industry itself? Because there's like the $2 billion wellness industry of, oh, they said red light therapy for my under eyes. I'm so into wellness as like kind of part of my brand versus actual wellness.
Oh, I could get real cynical real fast. I feel like that might also be on brand for your podcast. But,
Yes, it is.
The first thing that comes to mind is just my own contribution to the wellness space that I thought was really ugly. From when I launched my first event in 2024, my second event in 25, those were both called Biohacker Expo, and I held them in Miami. And I was on stage at my second event saying things like, there's a bunch of stuff you can do in the room over there that you can add to your protocols. But really, let's just start with what we stop, and let's try some free things. And I think that, I have friends who are biohacking because they want to drink. So let me drink all night, and then I'll take a berberine before I go to bed, and then that'll lower my blood sugar, and then I'll be fine. And so some of these protocols in the longevity or biohacking space are designed, it's just like the pharmaceutical industry. They're designed to overcome some damage we've done to ourselves on purpose. And that's what's bullshit. Like, if you want to be healthy, there's so much, these protocols on top of a carefree, caution to the wind lifestyle, they're just panaceas. They're just patches. It's just like Advil for a headache. It's all the same nonsense with a different label. And so red light for under the eyes, that's great, but so's bouncing in place. If you bounce without like getting your feet off the ground, just a little bounce. Just
Rebounding is what that's called, right?
Yeah. And you can have a trampoline, or you can just bounce in place, like while you're waiting for your coffee to drip or whatever it is. And that little bit of bounce helps the lymphatic, because it's the lymphatic fluid under your eyes. And it's not, there's nothing wrong with your face. It's just a little stuck. So a little bounce a few times a day, and that'll get it out. But
no
they
idea.
They want to sell you red light instead. And I love red light. It's great.
Yeah, it's not that things inherently are bad.
But they don't tell you that you can do it on your own for free.
And that's the issue, especially like when we get to things that aren't cosmetic. It's like, if I think the only way to feel better is to spend this amount of money, and I don't have it, I'm going to stay sick.
Right. And that's what I really want people to understand, is that you don't have to spend money for at least half of the benefit. Mornings. So by coincidence this week, I've been out in the morning walking my dog and then watching the sunset at night. Twice I watched the sunset having dinner, and last night walking my dog. And I finally got 9 hours of sleep last night. I have been suffering with like 6 to 7 hours for months. And it took 3 days. It doesn't work with one day. You can't reset your circadian rhythm in a single day. But if you see the morning sun and the evening sun, you'll sleep better at night. But it takes a dedicated effort. But if you go see a doctor because you can't sleep, I've had some serious sleep deficit for months. And if I went to a doctor for it, they have to prescribe a medication, or it's considered some form of malpractice on their part. Because they can't give the recommendation that you adhere to a set of habits, because they know most people don't have the discipline to do it. And so it's considered irresponsible for them to put it on us to take better care of ourselves. And they're empowered to give the pill. Now the pill, you'd think that the insurance company would want you to have fewer prescriptions, but they've actually got the system set up in a way where they make 50% of the money. And so they're incentivized. The payer is getting a rebate. The payer is incentivized for you to take the pill. So the doctor is only getting paid if the insurance company agrees that they are worthy of coverage. And when they order tests and make recommendations that are outside of the window, they're threatened to no longer be able to provide care by XYZ insurance company. And I learned that from a man, his name is Brigham Bueller, and he runs a clinic called Ways to Well in Austin. And he's on a lot of podcasts, and he explains how that works in a way that just blows my mind. They're so in bed together, all of them. And it's not that your doctor doesn't want to tell you. Your doctor can't. Your doctor can only do what your doctor has been enabled to do by the corporation they work for and the insurance company that makes the payment.
I'm like in disbelief. I mean, and the thing is, you know, I always say I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm educated, but like the conspiracy keeps unraveling. Like there's just always more layers to it.
But it's just money. It's economics.
Yeah.
Right? It's simple. Doctors need to be paid. They have bosses. Those hospitals and doctor practices get paid by the insurance company. There's all of the liability protection that they have. There's been lawsuits, right? So we've got this narrowing window of what's considered okay, both based on liability lawsuits and what insurance is willing to cover, which is informed by that. And it's all just money.
It all comes because one of my questions was going to be like, we talked about there being confusion around what's available to help treat whatever symptoms you're experiencing. And do you think that confusion is intentional? I feel like it is.
I'm really angry about something today with regards to that, because there's an article in the New York Times today about longevity medicine.
Okay.
And they're deferring to, they say they interviewed 10 longevity medicine doctors, but they don't say who they are. And then they kind of conclude, and maybe it's a 50-50 article. It felt pretty biased to me towards the gerontology industry. But drug companies are funding the associations that pay the doctors to say that longevity medicine is bullshit. And that is a conspiracy. That is coordinated. Like, there's a push. They've already squashed the biohacking movement because that sounds so irresponsible to hack your biology. Like, I'm hacking my biology every time I drink water and I'm hydrated. It's a way into my cells that, you know, if I think about, will make me feel better. Mm-hmm. That's all biohacking is to optimize your internal or external environment on purpose for better health. Mm-hmm. But that term is now a no-no. Like, can't call it biohacking anymore. You got to call it longevity. So now they're trying to say that longevity isn't a viable form of medicine. Like, what's the point of medicine if it's not to live well longer? Live better longer. Have a better
to take
health
people's
span.
money.
There's that too. And that's what they're saying. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that the whole longevity industry is a bunch of quackery that's designed to take your money, and not what we're talking about. You and I are talking about living well, feeling good for more time. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to live to be 90, 100, 120, whatever it is, we don't want those last 10 to 20 years to feel like shit.
Yes.
And so many people, young people, feel like shit now.
Yep.
So how are they to believe it's possible to even age without feeling that way? But I know from going from a situation where at 45, my brain stopped functioning for me in a way that allowed me to conduct my normal life, to now running events and creating opportunities for myself on my own with clarity and persistence and qualities that I admire, I'm able to do that because I found a way to heal. And in that process, I found out what's bullshit and what works. Now, what works isn't universal, but I think the principles are universal. And that's what I want to share with people. I want people to understand that if you say no to a few things, then you can hear the signals of your body a little better. And that's what I call that step is decode. After you stop something, after you eliminate, then you decode the signals. And then you probably have to go back and eliminate some more. And there's probably a loop there between eliminating and decoding where you can finally hear yourself and get real with what your body's saying. And then add the red light. You know, once you've started practices that naturally eliminate the lymphatic fluid from getting stuck in your face, then add the red light.
Right.
Right?
I think going to that article, the New York Times, I don't trust the New York Times in general. I came to that conclusion within the past couple years, but it's supposed to be one of the most reputable news sources out there. It's not. That's a whole other. That's a whole other thing. Podcast. Yeah, I'm I don't trust the New York Times. I trust TMZ more than I trust not even joking. Because they gonna have their sources, if they can, verified with the evidence attached.
Well, Jon Stewart said something a long time ago about news from comedy. He said, it's not funny if it's not true.
Correct.
So you better have it straight. You can't make shit up and it still be funny, because then it falls on its face. And I think that's true of TMZ. If it's not true, they're immediately discredited.
Yeah, and people want to discredit, because it's a tabloid, people want to discredit tabloids. So, if they're saying something, I'm going to believe you, because they have the receipts, and it's entertaining. Like you said, it's comedy, it's funny, it's entertaining for a reason, because it's true, and it's saying something about society in a way or another. Speaking of gossip and all those things, we had talked a little bit about off camera social media and manufactured outrage, which I think is one of the tools used to keep people sick, confused, spending, et cetera, through what's shown on social media. Taking a step back to the basics, how does the constant social media stimulation, manufactured outrage affect your nervous system?
Oh, goodness, that's such a great question. I don't know that people realize how interconnected our beliefs and our perception and just the things we're exposed to affect our biology. But even the infinite scroll on TikTok or Instagram, this is designed to give us a feeling of emptiness. We're automatically looking for fullness. Our brain is looking to complete something, always. We want to come to a conclusion. But in the infinite scroll, so that's the first way, is that we're never satisfied. And that contributes not only to this sense of, it gives this not enough sensation that we observe in society. It's just never enough. I don't have it yet. And so that feeds a sense of stress. But then the content that's on there, they've demonstrated exactly how, with a few different likes or reactions or watches of videos, the platforms will divide us politically because they are rewarded that we spend more time on the platforms when we're outraged than when we're at peace. And so they don't send me all dog videos, which I would do that all day long. If they sent me funny dog videos, they'd have me, but they don't get me. So they send me politics because they think politics about food in particular. They think that that's going to hook me, but I can see through it. And so now I just don't use it at all because I can see them trying to get at me. They're trying to trigger me with what they send. And then they're trying to get me to buy something because that's how they make money. So if you watch the way that the feed comes through, you'll get something innocuous, you'll get something aggravating, you'll get something cute, and then you'll get an ad.
Mm-hmm.
And so they give you a little bit of relief right before they ask you to buy something. And then it's just rinse and repeat. It's over and over and over again. And all of that is designed to make us feel unsettled and dependent. But what's happening in the body with that unsettled feeling is that our heart rate variability goes down. And so the number one way to boost your heart rate variability is to breathe in and out at 5-second intervals. I do it with a hum on the exhale because it makes it more likely to boost my HRV. But that balance, so let me describe for people what that is. Your heart doesn't beat like a metronome. So if you're going to have 60 beats per minute, that's an average. If you have high heart rate variability and your average is 60 beats per minute, when you breathe in, it's like it's going up to 70 beats per minute. And when you breathe out, it's going down to about 50 beats per minute, and the average is 60. And so if you're hovering around like 58 to 62, it's not very healthy. You want this big variance. But when they give us this agitation, it compresses the variance. And so we have low heart rate variability, this low range of the variance of our heartbeats. And that means we're not ready to rest or run. But when we have a high variability, we could just take a breath and be at peace. Or if something triggered us, we could go after it. And that's the way our body's designed. But that agitation literally compresses that. And then we're immobilized. We can't really do anything. And if you look around, there's a lot of people who just feel stuck and agitated. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's happening here in our hearts based on what we perceive. And breaking that cycle, breaking that, and you talked about the manufactured outrage, but that outrage is designed to make us stressed and agitated so that we are dependent on them. And then it has this cascading effect into every other part of our bodies. We can't think as clear. We don't move as much. Our hormones get off balance because once your stress hormone goes up, it affects your estrogen or your testosterone levels, and that can affect fertility. Manufactured outrage can affect how we are able to make babies. It's crazy that it's not that it's a direct cause and effect, but it's part of the whole.
The system.
Yeah, and it's part of the whole of the system of the body. Because
can it do that for both men and women? Wow. Because something we don't talk about is like male fertility, like sperm, whatever. Because I was reading stuff that like screen time or like sleeping in the bed with your screen and stuff as a man lowers your sperm, whatever. Yeah.
So they're finding a significant number of 18-year-old men today that have the same testosterone levels as 50-year-old men in the 50s. And it's because of the screens and the food and the plastics and the phthalates, the Axe body spray. Like, any mom who's got a teen boy out there, don't let him use body spray, because that's going to affect how he develops in puberty with the appropriate amount of testosterone that he needs to thrive. And
that's insane.
It's in the laundry detergents and in our soaps and our perfumes and air fresheners. A friend of mine told me that she found out her daughter was having, her liver was like kind of overworking. And was asking me for ideas of things that she hadn't considered, because they're already really conscientious about things to eliminate in their environment. And I said, well, she's a teenage girl. Teenage girls like things that smell good. Does she wear perfume or have air fresheners? And sure enough, she had just a couple months prior bought a plug-in air freshener for her room, because we like things that smell good. But that could be part of what was overtaxing her liver.
Yes, that's the thing. Like, also going back to the indirect effects and the nervous system and stuff, I think, like how you said, it affects your stress hormone and then it just like stays high. Something that happened with me, I don't think it was really just social media. I think it was also my work environment, mainly my work environment, was my cortisol stayed high for so long that it just flatlined. Like, it dropped and flatlined. So it's like in the morning, my cortisol went, like your cortisol is supposed to spike when you wake up. It was just maybe a little bit up. Like, not even, like it just was basically flatlined, because it just was, my body did what it was supposed to do, because your cortisol should not be high all the time.
Or low all the time.
Or low all the time.
It needs to rise and fall.
So it was like, because we're noticing that this is just staying here and this is starting to get dangerous, like it's been a long time of this danger, we're gonna like keep you lower, which is insane to think that like something like your job, social media can have such an effect on that. And then
like, you sharing that, because I have somebody in my life who's experiencing that low cortisol level, and I had forgotten about that. But that's like you described what happens in the body for what we call burnout.
Yep.
That's literally burnout. Like, you were so on and so stressed that your body was like, nope, we're done.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you that energy anymore.
It's been too long.
Yeah. You've misused it.
Yes.
You misused the energy. Now you're not getting any. And then you have to find a way to convince your body to give it back.
Which is like convincing your body that it's safe. Like, the nervous system, I think people underestimate how important it is. Because, like, if you're constantly getting these little triggers from social media, people are like, oh, it's not killing me. But it's like, it's sending signals to your body that's not safe. And over time, then you're going to have to convince your body, like, okay, it's fine. We're good. I'm not going to do that again. We're going to regulate. And, like, from people that you know or your experience, how can that stress raise cortisol from overexposure show up as physical symptoms over time?
I think it's exactly what you described. And there's a woman, I met her in the park. I went to the park one day and I was playing a singing bowl and I was having just a lovely little afternoon, and she sat down next to me. And this was a year ago, but she messaged me a couple days ago and said, do you offer sound healing? And I said, I just moved. I'm not in town anymore. I'll help you find somebody, but are you okay? Like, for someone a year later
To remember.
ask a random woman in the park if she can help. I was like, are you all right? And she said to me, she said, well, I've been so involved in politics. She said, yes, the short answer is yes, but I've been so involved in politics and being an activist in the last few months that I'm worn out. I don't have it. And so I think that there are worthy causes for giving something everything we've got. But it's like the oxygen mask on the airplane. If you don't put it on yourself first, you can't help the kid next to you. And we forget that. So sometimes I think that there are people who, like her, are out in the world being activists and wearing themselves out. But I know a lot of keyboard warriors who feel like they're doing the same, but they're just on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if it gets to that level, where you think you're doing the activism, you think you're giving it your all, but you're just in a rabbit hole of outrage, you can burn out. And your body can decline to give you what you need to thrive in life. And you know it from the fatigue. The fatigue's probably the first thing.
Yeah, definitely. And fatigue in itself, it's like, not like, oh, I'm being lazy. I think because of our society, we convince ourselves that, like, at first, like, oh, I'm just being lazy. I need to get it together. But then it gets to a point where you're like, no, I really want to do this. And I, like, physically do not have the energy. Like, there has to be something outside of me being lazy.
Well, that's how I knew I was sick. Like, when I thought that I went from, oh, I just fried a circuit, which I'm sure was a completely realistic consideration at that time in my life. I fried a circuit, let me rest. But now it's worse and I can't stay awake past 7. Like, if you don't have the energy to keep going until 8 or 9 o'clock for whatever it is you enjoy in life, it doesn't have to be work. You know, I took a walk till 8:30 last night and I still had energy. I had ample to give my family until 9:30, 10.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are feeling like 5, 6, 7 o'clock, like, oh, the evening, such a chore, that's a signal that your body isn't rising and falling. I gave the example of heart rate variability and you gave the example of cortisol. But those are very related, right? Like that idea that we rise and we fall and we ebb and flow and everything moves in cycles, ups and downs. That's the way life's supposed to feel. But if you feel a little just like stuck, like you can't get out of a certain situation, we're very quick to call that depression. We're very quick to call that unmotivated. But those are signals that something in your body isn't operating at the best it can, the way it's designed, according to its natural intelligence.
And I think, so you speak about the natural intelligence of the body, and earlier we talked about so much of how you heal is you just like actually listening to your body and being for real instead of like, oh, I'm gonna biohack so I can binge drink on the weekend. How do you think people can become more in touch with the signals of their body?
I'm going to defer to ancient wisdom to answer that question. And
I love that.
It starts with the breath.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing our breath. How many breaths are we taking per minute? Can we slow it down?
Mm-hmm.
And then after noticing the breath, because I think that's probably the starting point, how do I feel right around the area of my heart? I think it just starts with those two things. I don't want to complicate it. I really believe that if someone were to take on those two questions, How's my breath? Can I slow it down? I guess it's 3 questions. How do I feel in the area around my heart? Everything else comes.
Why do you think people are resistant to eliminating or even just like pausing to try to listen to the signs of their body, but they're so ready to buy a supplement or buy something?
Well, I think the brain lies to us for expediency. Like, my brain will tell me I'm depressed when really I've just had a cupcake. Like, it feels the same inside my brain, but my brain goes, oh, we felt that way before. It's like a sugar overload and you get that low. And then it goes, yep, I know what that is. That's depression. You're a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. My brain does that to me. And I'm like, fuck you, brain. I just had a cupcake. Like, give me a minute. And not to demonize cupcakes, but there are all kinds of things in our life that trigger a familiar feeling. And our brain goes, yep, I know what that is. Because it wants to know very quickly. I want to fix that. I know what that is. You can move on. And it wants to get us through the uncertainty. Mm-hmm. The wider a space we can create for uncertainty, the longer we can tell our brains that they don't know everything. Just feel a sensation without judging it, without labeling it. Mm-hmm. That space is where the natural intelligence lives. But our brains are designed to move us forward as quickly as possible through uncertainty. And so they'll just make shit up.
Never thought about it like that. But I can notice those patterns even in my own brain of like, okay, time to fix it. Like, oh, you feel this way. All right. But something that I think I've done well, even though I never thought about it like that, is I try to think of the simple things when my brain goes there, because I guess to your point, our brains are designed to do that. So it's going to do it. But when it goes there, I've kind of trained myself to think of like the more easy things. Like maybe I just need to take the dog out and get some fresh air for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Maybe I need to do, because I have uterus stuff, like some hip circles, some pelvic circles. Like I've trained, and it's obviously going to be a work in progress forever, but like, let's think of like not what to buy necessarily, but like what I can do that's simple right now that I may not even have to like move. Yeah, because your brain will go there. Your brain will try to solve a problem.
Everybody can relate to that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the brain goes places we don't want it to go.
It just does.
Yeah.
And I really never thought about it like that.
And accepting and loving that part of our brain that leads us astray, because it keeps us safe too. Mm-hmm. Those automatic reactions keep us in our space, in our zone, and they keep us focused. But it's not the best tool for everything that comes up.
Correct. It's for like things that need to be solved maybe fast, or there's an immediate danger. It's supposed to keep you out of immediate danger, like hence anxiety. The whole point of that was like you're supposed to be like, oh, there's a lion and tiger and a bear. It's time to go.
Yeah.
That was the point of anxiety.
Right. But when it lingers, it's a problem.
Yeah.
But you know, the other thing about that is so fascinating about anger and anxiety and even outrage, if we're going to link them all together, once we get to a point like you described where the cortisol drops and you don't have the energy, there is one really effective way to get a boost. And it doesn't sustain, but it's rage. rage can increase our energy levels biologically. And so if you're stuck in a low zone, and that's what social media delivers, a little bit of rage, just a little bit and a little bit. And if we get really angry, then we feel better.
Temporarily.
And then we crash again.
It's all connected. All the things are tied to keep us on this hamster wheel. That made me think of, so your tool, like the BioEdge decoder, which I'll link in the episode description for everyone to get. It's completely free. So I went and I used it myself. I didn't tell it, oh, I have this condition, I have that. I just answered the questions as if I knew nothing as far as like the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And I felt that instead of like what social media or the internet will do and being like, well, maybe you need to buy this, or you have a this deficiency, or like what you lack, it kind of was reassuring of like, hey, you mentioned you used to have these symptoms and some of those have gotten better recently. You're doing this, you're doing that. And based on what you're telling me, it seems like this stuff is working. And then it identified areas of like, okay, there may be areas of opportunity here. And none of the things were like things I need to spend money on. It was like, for me, it was like hydration. And I've always had bad hydration habits. So it made sense. I'm like, yep, let me make sure I keep more water around in different spots, because I also have ADHD. So like, it doesn't know that. But like, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you might only drink water when you feel thirsty, but it's too late at that point. And I'm like, yeah, because like, if it's not like somewhere I can see, I'm not going to think about it. So like little things like that where I was like, yep, this makes sense. Again, it has none of my like medical information in there. It just asked how I was feeling and then asked follow-up questions. Instead of like, I think a lot of wellness stuff in the past has dysregulated me further because it just points out, you don't have this, you have this deficiency. Oh, you gotta incorporate these foods in your diet. And I'm like, well, I don't like that food, or I want this or that. But this was so simple in the different stuff that it mentioned and affirmed, like remind my brain, like, you've had improvements, like, because your brain will tell you a story. Your brain will feel one thing and it'll be like, my God, I've been working on this for years and it's not working, and it's like all failing. And this kind of like worked with my brain instead of against it.
I designed it to support the notion that your body has a natural intelligence to it, and that it operates within systems that are interconnected, that if you say, I'm feeling tired, it will ask you questions to get at different reasons. You know, it'll ask you about your emotional or your stress or your hormonal or it'll ask you questions that are supportive in nature, not trying to find anything wrong with you, but it's like, what you're telling me is an accurate intelligence report from natural intelligence. So let's just trace it back and give you some ideas about which systems of your body are calling out for help.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as opposed to the whole world around us, which takes I feel tired as there's something wrong with me. You know? And it's not always about wrong. The tired is the right. The tired is actually,
The signal.
yeah, that says, hey, pay attention. Get real with your body. Don't fix the tired. Love yourself more. Nurture yourself. Give yourself that space to whatever system is out of balance. It sent you the report. Get to the root of it so you can be real on the inside too.
Mm-hmm. And with some of this stuff, especially eliminating things that, or having them in moderation, I should say. Because, like, if you love cupcakes, you're going to have a cupcake every once in a while, and that's fine. But how do you make the elimination versus addition lifestyle sustainable long term?
I think sometimes initially for a few weeks or a few months, it's really helpful to be extreme. With that said, most people can't. So it's really helpful to at least be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes consistency is a signal. Like if you can't bring yourself to be consistent, that's a signal that a certain part of your brain isn't getting enough oxygen. And so knowing that, knowing I can deliver more oxygen to my brain through breath work and through exercise, doesn't mean I still do it, because that part of my brain isn't wired to get me that kind of consistency. And so the first thing we need is forgiveness for getting through the process. So before you think about what to stop, just give yourself the recognition that stopping's hard. But every single one of us, no matter our situation, has something we can stop doing at least once a week. And then that tells the brain, it starts to wire in a pattern of, I can take positive action for myself. So whatever it is, like when I was really sick, my form of exercise was to lie in bed and tighten my muscles and let them go. Tighten my muscles, let them go. That's all I could do. But I could do it. And so it's just somewhere. We have to start. It's different for everybody, but we just have to pick something.
And honoring whatever it is that you pick. Yeah, because I hate to say this, but it just has to be said, because there's a skinny culture right now, and I'm anti-skinny culture. I'm like be well culture. But like when I first started on my healing journey for my uterine stuff, they were like, intense exercise is making your body more inflamed. Like it's your personal body right now, because of the whole cortisol stuff and everything, you don't need to be going on runs, lifting too heavy of weights. You need to walk.
Yeah, that was good advice.
And call it, right? Like, do what your body has the energy for. Do not overinflame your body, forcing yourself to do things that it's not ready to do because your cortisol's not spiking. And in that, I lost like 20 pounds of like sometimes walking, because it was winter and I'm in Chicago, and it's like, okay, I wasn't gonna walk for a long time, and I honestly wasn't walking every day. But in being like, oh, just chill.
Yeah.
I lost 20 pounds, and I'm 5'2". Like, that's a lot of weight.
Well, that also took you have to be in a state of relaxation in order to digest the food properly.
Mm-hmm.
So just stopping the intense exercise allowed your body to rest, which allowed your body to digest. And it's so important. And I love that you gave that example, because what's the most common piece of advice if you're stressed out? Oh, get some exercise.
Yes.
It might make it worse.
It literally was making me worse.
Yeah. And you thought you were doing the right thing for yourself.
Correct.
How many people are following advice that they think is going to improve their health, and they're making it worse?
Has to be so many.
I know.
And the thing is, they're using the little energy they have to try to force themselves to do those things. Like, you only have, when you are dysregulated, you got a limited amount. And you're using that small little teeny bit to do something that's making it worse. Yeah. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. Is like, wherever your body is at, meet your body where it's at. I don't care if you see this runner who runs every day, who has your dream body, and they're so healthy, and they wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Their body was ready for that. So maybe we don't know their real life, but it appears as though their body can handle that. If your body can't handle that right now, you are making it worse trying to do that thing. Yeah. I feel like that's honestly the theme of what we're even talking about. And like tying it even to the social media, we see things that are working for other people, maybe because we don't know their life. So we see things that may be working for other people, and we're like, I have to do that. And at the end of the day, it makes us worse off. And to your point,
let's call it
the
the
body
influencers
knows
too, because
Yes.
they might be holding up a bottle that they put on their face or took as a supplement and say, this works for me. And they're getting paid for that. They might not even be using it. And so
Most of the time, I don't think they are.
how could they use all of it? Right?
You don't got enough time in the day.
No. And I thought all of those influencers had my best interest at heart when I was sick. And I tried everything. And that's part of how I spent all that money.
That's so sad that, like, yeah, I think people joke about influencers and stuff, but I'm like, instead of joking about them, we need to like really call out the amount of power that they have on people's everyday consumption, and what your everyday consumption can do to your body for the better or worse. Like,
Yeah.
it can really change people's lives.
I just spoke with a man who creates a line of supplements and sells them. And he told me that the only thing that's working to advertise the supplements right now is to run ads on influencer accounts who say his product works. And so even sometimes those spots are being boosted financially by the provider. So they're paying the influencer, they're paying to promote the video. I love this man and his products. They're great products. But he can't cut through the noise without the influencers. And it's just so... There's a trust gap that's a real challenge right now.
There is. I hope that we get to a space where we can rebuild, because I think social media can be a good, powerful tool, but we have to rebuild how we use it, our relationship with it, and our relationships with our own body through, like, even like your tool of the BioEdge decoder, of like something summarizing in like 1 or 2 paragraphs what you typed about your body.
Isn't that the most helpful part? Just having it reflect back. This is what you told me about yourself.
Yeah.
These are the
and
systems
like
of
I
the body
summarized
involved
it.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then take that to a doctor.
Yeah, you can use it to take to the doctor. You can use it to be like, okay, this is one thing I want to work on this month. You can use it in any kind of way, but it's just coming back to yourself. Thank you so much for coming and being honest here, because what I guess longevity, wellness, feeling good industry lacks is like people actually being honest about how we can feel better as a society and the things that are hurting us, because people are scared to speak up because they think they're going to lose money or opportunities. So people are scared to speak up. So I appreciate you not being scared to speak up.
Thank you.
And like telling us some of the stuff. Like I know your book has a chapter on social media, so sharing a little bit about what you talk about in your book. And I'll link all your information, but where can people find you normally? Is it your website or social media?
I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I can't tell you the last time I checked my DMs, so it's probably not a great way to reach me. But bioedgelongevity.com is my website, and my email is sandy@bioedgelongevity.com. If you want to reach me, probably email me is the best way.
Okay.
But that and the BioEdge Decoder website, I think.
Perfect. Yes.
Either one.
And your book is out now?
It is.
Okay, perfect. Edge. So we'll link the book as well, but thank you so much for joining, keeping it real, talking about how the wellness industry is treating symptoms, but not your lifestyle.
Thanks again for having me. It's been awesome.
Thanks, everyone.